Christos. The Tao of Love. Apocrypha 5. URIM and THUMMIM. The Tao of Love. Master Yoga. Master Carpenter, Leave Vitruvius. Myriel, Pilgrim. Master Contest, Art Discipline. Master of Art, the Curry. Sanat, Art of Defense. Sanat, Wing Chung Shaolin. Sanat, Train Symmetry. Sanat, the higher state of consciousness. Sanat, physical symmetry. Sanat, Kundalini, the Tao of life. Sanat, Octave of creation. Sanat, the secret Sanctum. Sanat, Pelvis symmetry. Sanat, unconditional. Sanat, Karma, the law of love. Sanat, the yoga of life. Sanat, the garden of Master Christos. The Tao of love. Christos. Master Carpenter Vitruvius. The ratio of beauty. Christos walked on his way home, knowing that Sunday was approaching and the Master's garden would be filled with interesting people. But like every new master who masters a craft, he needed some time to unwind and digest the lessons. Being a master comes with the responsibility of teaching others in the same way. There was no need for written words or texts, as they would only be burdensome while traveling through the lands. A true master carries the wisdom within and doesn't rely on heavy books with meaningless words. A string and a ring in one's hands can visually teach the Pythagorean triangle. Christos was filled with joy at the beauty of symmetry. It became evident why humans look the way they do, each in their own unique way, as a manifestation of their true essence. Until Sunday, he would enjoy life and contemplate this realization. In 12 days, he would return to the Master's garden. The surroundings were beautiful, with spring in full bloom, vibrant colors, and the fragrance of various flowers and trees. It was a time when the cold days were over, and summer was on its way. The concept of stability took on a whole new meaning as Christos never thought about the body in that way before. After a 2-day pilgrimage, he encountered a woman walking from the opposite direction. In those times, people would greet one another and engage in small talk to share news and stay updated on the happenings of the world. Within families, the elders would pass down their knowledge to the younger generation, as only priests, scholars, and their clerks had the ability to read at that time. However, the people were not unintelligent and could perform basic calculations using their fingers, allowing them to engage in trade at the market. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Carpenter Vitruvius. The ratio of beauty. Myriel said, "Hello Christos, you seem friendly." "Yes, after 2 days, you will reach the city. Just stay on the road that leads up the river, and you will find it. There is a summer festival to celebrate the beginning of summer. It will begin in 3 days, which coincides well with your Master Carpenter celebration. What do you think?" Christos replied, "Good day, Myriel." "Thank you, I was thinking the same about you." "Oh yes, now I understand why the Master suggested I take the long way home and find a suitable feast on the way. But please tell me, what is the festival about?" Myriel explained, "It is a people's celebration, but masters from far and wide will come to participate in a contest to prove the concepts they teach. It is a martial arts event based on Eastern philosophy and will last for several days until the final round. Unfortunately, I have no time to stay as I need to tend to the garden and take care of the animals. However, it will be interesting to see which martial arts style emerges as the winner. They will have to fight against many competitors, and only one fight club, with its unique philosophy and concept, can enter the arena as a representative." Christos expressed his thoughts, This is indeed interesting, but don't you think it is somewhat brutal? Myriel assured him, they have strict rules in place. It will not be a knockout fight. The fighters will face many contenders, and there are restrictions on striking below the waistline or engaging in biting, scratching, or any other harmful actions. They are highly trained individuals who also serve as guards and maintainers of order in their lands. That is why they dedicate their lives to continuous training and never cease to exercise their skills. Christos bid farewell, saying, "Thank you, Myriel. I wish you a safe journey on your way home." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. The city was astonishingly large and featured an elaborate water system for distributing fresh water. As Christos passed through the main gate, he walked into a bustling market where the final preparations were being made. In the center of it all stood the wooden arena, surrounded by spectator benches. Market stalls were set up where seasoned masters of different disciplines engaged in conversations with the people. The next day, the celebrations commenced with a speech by the king of the kingdom. As Myriel had mentioned, it was fascinating to witness the diverse range of martial arts on display. Despite their contrasting approaches, each discipline showcased its own strengths without any apparent weaknesses. Every art form had its justification and proved effective against gangsters and violent individuals. Inevitably, there were winners and losers in the tournament. Competitors from distant lands had arrived to demonstrate their supreme skills, and the matches continued throughout the day. One particular art stood out for its unique approach. Instead of relying on punches and kicks, these fighters focused on grappling and wrestling techniques to overpower their opponents. It was a distinct style that required close proximity to engage with the enemy. On the second day, the fighters resumed their battles in the morning. The previous day's winners faced off once again, and some showed signs of fatigue. It was during these moments of vulnerability that a mere 2-second lapse could result in a knockout defeat. One art form, in particular, captivated the audience. The representative of this discipline had fought in the initial matches, just like many others. Their movements resembled dancing and reacting, as opposed to brute force. Each evening, the people indulged in feasting, music, and dancing, while philosophers and priests delivered speeches in the market square, adjacent to the arena. The days were filled with delicious food and engaging conversations between fights. By the third day, only a handful of competitors remained. The evening marked the final showdown, just as the sun began to set. Some fighters were wounded or fatigued, unable to continue despite their best efforts. However, there was one fighter who stood out, displaying remarkable endurance and skill, just as they had on the first day. They entered the final alongside another formidable opponent, who, despite their weariness, had proven themselves throughout the tournament. Their eyes were red, and the effort they exerted seemed futile in comparison to their adversary. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. After the winner's ceremony, the feast reached its peak and everyone celebrated the upcoming summer and the fall harvest. As Christos went to get another cider and a shisha, he noticed the fighter at the market, who, along with his elderly masters, was talking to people after such intense training. One market stall had a different aroma of herbs and spices that seemed unfamiliar to him, and he hadn't tried them yet. The tasty food was served on a palm leaf, and he couldn't wait to experience the flavors of these unknown spices. While waiting, the fighter approached and also asked for their food. The fighter said to Christos, "I see you have good taste. Here is the best curry, just like back home." Christos replied, "Curry? I've never heard of that spice. What plant is it from?" As the food was served to them on the palm leaf, the fighter and Christos sat down to enjoy their meal. The fighter answered, "You've never had curry? That's brave. Let me tell you, it's very, very, very spicy, but also very healthy." Christos responded, "I didn't know that. Thank you for the advice. The spiciness is not a big problem for me, as my previous master had peppers in his garden and would cook tomatoes with them for a long time. He called his type of peppers peperoncino, but I've never seen them in any other garden. I'm willing to give it a try." The fighter said, "There are multiple spices used to make curry, and every family has its own traditional recipe, just like the art we practice. It's to ensure that gangsters and violent people can never learn and misuse it, just as we preserve our curry tradition. It includes ground coriander, cumin, paprika, cayenne pepper, chili peppers, turmeric, black pepper, and ground ginger." Christos exclaimed, "Oh, it tastes very special. What a difference. Thank you, Master. I didn't know. Now I feel the heat. Oh yes, it's even more intense than the hot tomato sauce from Master Vitruvius. I always feel well and relaxed afterward, as the heat gradually subsides. I've never felt that the spice would cause harm, but rather promote health." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Sanat, the fighter, said, "You are very clever, my dear Christos. That is exactly the case in its purpose. Curry has a wide spectrum and creates a good feeling where no dessert is needed." Christos was astonished and asked, "Where do you know my name?" Fighter answered, "I have the best regards from our beloved Nada for you. We are all very proud of you. Indeed, you are the bright kid around. My name is Sanat, and I teach the people in the village to defend themselves when they are on the road alone." Christos said, "Now I understand everything, and what a pleasure to meet you, Sanat. Just give me a hug. But tell me, how are you doing this? How is it possible that you still sit here after all these single fights, while the others were looking tired or worse? I see only a small scratch on the eyebrow and a scrape on the chin. I can't understand." Sanat explained, "There are multiple factors that form the foundation of this concept. Our art is the philosophy of Master Nui, who started the movement that we are part of. It is a direct counterpart to Kung Fu, specially effective for women. A well-trained woman can neutralize 5 opponents in only 1 to 2 minutes, even if they are all men. The focus is on defense, but if necessary, it can be fully proactive to succeed." Christos asked, "That is impressive for women, but how could a woman win against the physical advantage and Kung Fu skills of gangsters? I can't see how this is possible. Shouldn't every woman have learned it by now?" Sanat replied, "It is truly astonishing, just like the Shaolin art itself. I will show you the basic techniques tomorrow, and it will only take 12 minutes. But there is more to it. Women and men need to train and learn the rest in order to be able to defeat the Kung Fu gangsters." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Sanat said, "The first part is the most important. If we receive a blow to the head, then the game is, in most cases, over. This is because the brain will be traumatized, and the senses are also thrown out of alignment, as if we become very, very drunk in only 1 second." Christos replied, "Oh yes, I know that one too, of course. But what about the stomach and the ribs? If I receive a blow to the stomach, so to speak, then I am breathless for 1 minute." Sanat answered, "You are right. That's why she developed the defense system, where one arm supports the other. The posture with a low center of mass also helps. The Kung Fu gangsters would use their fists to control the opponent, and after a few dozen seconds, they always perform the roundhouse kick. In that moment, they must turn their head, and that's when we go in and kick their balancing leg or foot while ducking to avoid their attacking feet completely. Christos said, "Oh yes, I saw that when you were performing, and then the repetitive head strikes as a consequence to knock them out when they are on the floor. That was really impressive. I can't wait until tomorrow." Sanat said, "Thank you, my dear Christos. Now the rule is to keep the attacker at a distance greater than 6 feet. If the enemy is closer, it means that every attack must be predicted. And just at the moment the attack is blocked, the attack itself will be used to counterattack. It is because the force and mass of the opponent are in disengagement, similar to a bow where you must bring a new arrow into position. The second ingredient is the training of the body." Christos asked, "What do you mean? Do the women have their own dojo and fight full contact?" Sanat answered, "Yes, but they do not have their own dojo. We are all in their dojo. It means we train together in their dojo. The training has a special goal. Without this, Wing Chun does not work for our village people, including myself. A loving heart cannot hurt others and will be petrified when attacked. Even if someone is attacking as a result of their natural basic instinct, it would not do any harm but rather be a silly attempt. This can only happen if the person has never ever experienced this situation before. We would act irrationally, and our inner self is completely against it. Then, one counter-strike to the head and voila, game over." The same applies to the body. Let me give you an example. Every spring, when we start going barefoot again, it takes a few weeks to get used to it, as if it is normal and it doesn't hurt anymore. Christos said, "That is true. It is always that way, just some daily training." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Christos said, "The exact same is when beginners apprentice to work craftsmanship at the construction site as carpenter." Christos said, "The exact same thing happens when you start as an apprentice working in craftsmanship at a construction site as a carpenter." Sanat replied, "Exactly, that's why in MUI suggests using the practice tree. We go into the forest and look for a suitable tree. Then, 4 times a week, we practice there because some people live far away and can only join the dojo once a month on Sundays to talk and practice, to see if they are training the right way. The tree helps to harden the fists, arms, and legs, just like the feet get used to walking barefoot. It only takes a few weeks, during spring when it is between comfortable and painful. Real pain is completely different and will hurt in a way that makes us understand that our body cannot tolerate the current situation. That's why Mastering suggested a slow ramp up when using the tree, where we train without pain. If the pain starts to develop after a short time, we stop and wait until there is no pain before training with the tree again. It should be effortless and painless, just like walking barefoot in spring. Otherwise, we take a break until the sore feet calm down." Christos said, "It's true, when I tried to force myself, the pain would become too much and I had to take a break, despite the eagerness to reach the new master. But with a break right before the pain threshold, it would calm down, and then I could walk normally again. It's the same with the heat on the sand." Sanat explained, "Exactly, that's the most efficient learning and practicing technique ever, optimized for maximum efficiency. The third factor is balance and symmetry, along with the submusculature that makes it possible in the first place." Christos asked, "What do you mean by submusculature? And when you talk about body symmetry and balance, which balance are you referring to? I'm having trouble understanding." Sanat answered, "Yes, you are exactly right. Our body balance is achieved through the symmetry we train for. The submusculature refers to the secondary set of muscles that work together in harmony with the main muscles, much like a symphony. The difference is that this layer is the fundamental layer, and the normal muscle layer develops on top of it with secondary priority. For walking and talking, the submusculature layer is responsible for most of the work. Christos said, astonished, "That's very interesting. I didn't know about that or even think about how babies learn to walk and speak. But there must be many small muscles involved in these tasks. Do you have an exercise for each muscle, and how long is the program in total when performed?" Sanat answered, "That's a good question. We do have an exercise for each muscle of the submusculature, but the program to train all these muscles consists of only 7 exercises, and it takes just 7 minutes. It's all about repetition, which creates muscle memory for perfect shape and symmetry. But even with this power yoga, the same principle applies as with everything else we do. Quality is more important than quantity. After 6 days, we take a break for 1 day, usually on Sundays, but it can be chosen to fit any life situation." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Christos said, "Yoga-based, that is interesting since all martial art disciplines and cultures use yoga as a base to learn focus on the situation to come. Except there is something else I found. There are those with the black nomad garments, from the desert, called Hashashin. They emerged on the 3rd day. An old man told me that they use hash to raise their awareness, and then, with the black garments and a loud screaming, they scare the enemy right from the beginning, using this technique to their advantage. I cannot understand it, because when I smoke their shisha and drink mint tea at their market stall, I feel more peaceful than before." Sanat replied, "That is the hidden little secret you are talking about. Just give me a hug, my dear Christos. This is the 4th ingredient to become independent and master any situation to suit ourselves, and never retreat and never surrender ever again in our life. Almost all members of the art know this and use it as part of their superior technique. It is called the state of higher consciousness, the ultimate state of awareness. Certain plants, mushrooms, and cacti have species that are a special gift from our Father in heaven, where the tea is made by extracting the substance. This knowledge is as old as humanity and even some animals. They walk once per year to the border of the desert to eat the fruits on the ground that also create the effect. Every shaman of the indigenous people knows which plant is used for which purpose. In fact, this is how the medicinal usage of plants came to be, where the shamans used the plants as gifts from God to connect with their higher selves, which is God, and receive answers to their questions from the animal and plant kingdom directly. Never forget, God made us in His same image, and nothing less. This means that if we can connect to our higher selves, then we receive the answer from God directly. But God is a busy being and has angels to help Him out. These angels, in return, inform God about the well-being of His children and anything else. That is why it is best to understand it as our better half, which takes place in this higher state of existence. However, the connection cannot be fully established, as we also must walk and talk. This becomes a partial experience, where the angels do the rest for us, the children of the only true God. If someone does not obey the 10 commandments of unconditional love, it is possible for them to get possessed by an evil entity, and the owner of the body cannot return. It is even worse when evil people do this for material and physical power to gain advantage over others. Christos said, "I did not know that the masters of the art use this as their secret weapon, and the herbs to heal different types of diseases. I never thought about it in that way. Thank you, Master Sanat, for the enlightenment I am receiving right now. Is this your secret on how you won the competition?" Sanat answered, "Oh yes, it is the higher state of consciousness that ultimately made my success possible." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Christos asked, "But if others are doing the same, why is yours superior? Have you found the ultimate extract?" Sanat answered, no, not at all. The state is the same, but the path to reaching the higher state of consciousness is completely different. We don't use any external extract, instead, we tap into what is already inside us. It is directly related to the seventh exercise, which trains a specific muscle that acts as an energy source to achieve the higher state of awareness. The first 5 exercises train the submusculature and create muscle memory for the perfect symmetry of our bodies, which is based on the spine. The spine connects the legs, arms, and, of course, the head. Christos asked, perfect symmetry? What do you mean by that? When I look at the spine, the muscles already appear to be in symmetry. I don't understand. Sanat explained, you're right, the spine and its muscles are symmetrical to each other. But now, imagine I turn myself 90 degrees. From the side, you'll see me in perfect symmetry. Picture how, in the morning when we stand up, our bodies tend to lean forward, like elderly people who can't walk upright anymore. This inclination to lean forward affects our daily lives, even when women have to lift heavy objects like water and grain. If we have this misalignment in our bodies, people tend to lift with an incorrect spinal posture. According to the leverage principle, this exerts excessive force on the edges of the spinal discs, leading to disabilities or chronic pain. That's why we need to train our bodies to maintain a healthy alignment. After the 7-minute exercise, the body returns to symmetry, not beyond symmetry, which would result in misalignment. Christos said, that makes sense. It's like what I observed on the construction site. There are these strong men with deep voices and impressive physical stature, but I noticed they never lift with proper spinal alignment. I could see how that would lead to back problems. During lunchtime, I asked one of them if he ever experiences issues because of that. He told me that it's part of their training, as it strengthens the muscles in their backs while they work. Another person explained something similar to me. But when it came time to tile the roof, it was amusing to see those strong men with deep voices being the first to complain. However, the rain was approaching, and Pythagoras had to make it clear to them the urgency of the situation. Sanat replied, exactly. I'm familiar with that as well. We have a group that carries luggage for wealthy individuals and tourists when climbing mountains. These rich people often carry excessive baggage that they can't lift without risking injury. Yet, these Sherpas carry these bags effortlessly, and in many cases, they even do it barefoot if the terrain allows. They've become masters simply by training for perfect symmetry and maintaining it throughout the day. Christos said, I've never heard of them, but it sounds similar to the principles followed by the men and women of Sparta, aiming to develop the ultimate enduring body and mind. Sanat explained, you're very perceptive, and you've already learned so much. Yes, there are others who utilize this knowledge. It originated from the Great Mountain, where there are many hidden libraries filled with secret wisdom, as we've discovered. It's as if the tablet designers knew that this knowledge would eventually be lost, so they created these hidden libraries to preserve it. This wisdom seems to come from a place lost in the sea, where people would flee at the last minute, with only one group retreating into the Great Mountain. Before leaving, they constructed these underground systems using their advanced technology, which surpasses what we have today. They believed it was too early for humanity, as their downfall was caused by the misuse of technology by a tiny minority, only 1% of their population. Now, onto the 5th and most crucial training practice that led to my success in the contest after 3 days. This is the type of Kundalini we employ. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Sanat replied, the gurus. Yes, there are many different beliefs and practices out there, and it's important to discern what resonates with you and what feels aligned with the principles of unconditional love. The approach you mentioned, of forcefully hitting the Kundalini snake, is not something we endorse or practice. It goes against the very essence of unconditional love and is unnecessary. In our training, we embrace the Tao of love. We don't force or harm any aspect within ourselves. Instead, our training is built on the foundation of unconditional love. When our minds are immersed in unconditional love, our bodies naturally align with it. And as we progress, we extend this unconditional love to our environment, to animals, plants, mushrooms, and every living being we interact with. Simply by our presence, we radiate this unconditional love, creating a harmonious field of energy. Animals and plants, being inherently unconditional by nature, sense and respond to this love. They thrive in its presence, and this amplifies their life force. It's a beautiful reciprocal relationship, where we align with the unconditional love of God, and in turn, the garden of the source supports us in our alignment with God. This is a win-win situation throughout all of creation. Human games are often designed to create winners and losers, fostering division and animosity among people. But the path of unconditional love unites us all. Now, returning to the topic of plant extracts and mushrooms and their connection to the higher self. These plants can assist us in certain ritualistic practices, where shamans guide us in connecting with the divine. They create a foundation for direct experiences, allowing us to be fully present, to participate, and to perceive the beauty that lies beyond our physical senses. However, it's important to note that these substances are not meant for daily use or for the purpose of winning a contest. That would be approaching it with a conditional mindset, expecting the substance and our higher self to guarantee victory. But if we cultivate our own garden, metaphorically and literally, we are engaging in a similar process at different levels. By nurturing our own garden and consuming the fruits and gifts it offers, we become embodiments of unconditional love. Our gardens grow, both metaphorically and literally, and the plants and herbs within them hold specific dominant harmonic overtones that are aligned with and represent their unique qualities. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Sanat replied, "Correct, everything has its own frequency, which has a fundamental pitch to resonate with, as well as its harmonics. When we hit the octave, a resonance frequency is created, only slightly attenuated. The best example of this is flowers with their number of petals, which represent the manifestation of the dominant concept of creation and its corresponding OD force quality. With vegetables, it's simple because we choose them intuitively and the plants do the rest for us. On the biology tablets, we found two groups, one for health and the other for wisdom. If someone is sick and needs help, you can ask your garden which herbs or diet to use. The answer from the animal kingdom will be whispered quietly, while the noise of the world is 10 times louder. Plants will help you, they belong to the second group, which connects and aligns you better until you can clearly receive the answer and help others if it is meant to be. Every day, when you eat fruit, herbs, and salad, you connect more and more with everything through one of the fundamental layers, which are the collectors and their multiplication in the flower field. They build the next layers and form the fractal of the upper layers until the atom, the manifestation of matter, can occur through the complete stack of all lower levels. Ultimately, it is the collectors and their collector verse that connect every other layer to the source, which is Elohim and the Seraphim, and the OD force of creation that comes from them. Christos said, "The garden. That is truly interesting. As a child in the woods, we would always play in the same places that were especially beautiful, like a small garden, but I can't remember meeting these gardeners." Suddenly, dreams became interesting. It just so happened that I met the widow in a dream, where she couldn't speak but only cried out of despair. I knew her well because we would help her with heavy lifting until she fell in love again. But the dream was very real, and I couldn't forget any detail, so I went there, and in the field, I met her. She was very happy and said everything was fine with her new boyfriend. I was surprised, thrilled, and went home. But 2 weeks later, I was told that she had to flee to her mother with her son, and no one knew where they would hide because it ended in tragedy 7 days later. Then the weather and rain somehow always respected me and spared me from heavy rainfall in different ways, but I could never talk about it with people because they wouldn't understand and would attribute it to mere coincidence, which I can't agree with at all. Sanat explained, "Oh yes, there are no coincidences in the creation of our beloved God, Alpha Intelligence. Otherwise, the name would become invalid, along with his beautiful creation. This is the highest wisdom of our incarnation, that even though it's difficult to accept, things may make sense in the bigger context, which we will find out in the end. So we shall not judge." Christos replied, "That is true, we shouldn't praise the day before the evening." Sanat replied, "Absolutely, we should not make judgments or assumptions based on incomplete information. The bigger context and the grand plan of our Creator will reveal itself in due time. We must trust in the wisdom and perfection of the divine intelligence that governs our existence." Christos nodded in agreement and said, "Indeed, it is wise to refrain from premature judgments or conclusions. We can only fully understand and appreciate the intricacies of life when we embrace the unfolding journey with an open heart and mind." Sanat smiled and said, "Exactly, my dear Christos. Let us continue to cultivate our gardens, both metaphorically and literally, and trust that everything happens for a reason. In the end, the divine wisdom will prevail, and we shall find peace and fulfillment in the eternal embrace of unconditional love." And so, Christos and Sanat continued their conversation, exploring the depths of knowledge and wisdom, as they walked the path of love and enlightenment. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Sanat said, "Since we have all the layers, let's build the stack." The Tao for men is simple to understand. It is the root chakra energy center, the one associated with the OD force for our reproduction. Christos asked, "Does this mean that the root chakra is connected to our genitals as men?" "I don't understand because they never told me that, those Kundalini masters with their money bags." Sanat answered, "The answer is yes. We have the appropriate set of tablets for each chakra, including those related to the root chakra. The testicles are the most misunderstood part of male biology. If you think for a moment about their purpose, you'll come to one conclusion. They are solely used for fertilizing the egg inside the female body and nothing else." Christos said, "But they must also be the source of sexuality because I can feel it so strongly. In fact, this feeling is stronger than the good mood I experience after exercising, by a factor of 10. Sanat replied, "I completely agree, you are right. Let me delve a little deeper. It doesn't mean that we should stop having sex, it's actually the opposite. Our body system is complex and directly connected to the levels of creation through the chakra that resonates with the harmony number space symmetry vector. The testicles serve as storage for sperm, but they are also a storage for the OD force. We don't need to release these powerful beings, each of which can survive inside a female body for around 7 days, enduring a marathon-like journey to fertilize an egg by merging with it. Imagine if someone were clever and ambitious enough to waste 200 to 300 million of these living organisms, each with its own potential. Their purpose is simple to understand, and it is solely for reproduction. Now, if it's true that we keep our energy stored within, then we must work with it by directing the OD force to the upper chakras or other areas of the body. Otherwise, the OD force becomes too hot, like boiling water in a pan, and it wants to jump out. In that case, a part of it is lost, and we have to start again. Visualization, such as imagining the pan, helps, and the spine is the true OD force tree that not only connects all the physical parts together but also the entire nervous system. The blood serves as the medium, representing the physical aspect of the OD force, delivering it to every small area of our physical body. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Now, let's move on to the 7th exercise, which involves standing straight and solid on the ground. While it works best in the woods, it is not necessary. I visualize myself as a tree with energy roots extending from my feet into the ground. The foundation of this exercise is deep breathing. Just before the testicles, between our legs, there is a special muscle located at the pelvis, which is why we refer to it as such. The focus of this exercise is on the pelvis and contracting this very special muscle. The exercise begins with achieving perfect symmetry while standing, building upon the previous exercises. Once in the perfect stance, I slowly inhale and take a deep breath, filling my lungs and further enhancing the body's symmetry. Holding my breath, I contract and release the pelvis 8 times, with each contraction lasting approximately 1 second. During each contraction, I visualize and feel the energy being pulled up the spine and reaching the upper area. When releasing the pelvis, I also release the thought of pulling the OD force. After completing this cycle, I exhale naturally, without forcing the breath out, and then wait a few seconds before repeating the cycle. I can also take multiple normal breaths before starting a new cycle. There is no need for any force or effort during the exercise. It is slightly more effective when done in the morning, following the other exercise. This way, if I ever feel tired during the day, I can draw upon the OD force and replenish my energy. This is what I did to win the contest. Other fighters may have similar knowledge, but ultimately, this exercise taps into the storage center that continuously provides us with OD force. External substances quickly lose their effectiveness as our bodies adapt to them, often resulting in dizziness or counterproductive effects. Christos remarked, "That is true." I could see the confusion on their faces, and it often occurred in the final match where they were eliminated from the tournament. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. Christos said, "So all your men are true masters. I've never heard of this technique before." Sanat answered, "There is a second and easier method, which requires a supportive partner for the first year of successfully mastering it without setbacks. It's so simple that we couldn't understand why no one in the world is using it. Just before the moment when the OD force becomes too hot and wants to boil over, we can use the middle finger to hold the pelvis, as if pinching a hose. In that moment, you pull the energy up through the spine and perform the OD force pull several times, but you must never release your finger, otherwise it will escape. After about 24 seconds, the boiling sensation subsides and the OD force is pulled up, allowing you to release the finger and return to normal. Since the energy storage is mostly physical, this method works perfectly fine and requires minimal effort compared to the benefits it brings, especially as we age. Christos said, "Wow, thank you, Master. I've never heard anyone talk about the concept of OD force, its true purpose, and its usage. I've heard names like Kai, Ki, Chi, Riki, Prana, Mana, Pneuma, but this is new to me." Sanat replied, "Yes, never forget that we have the perfect and efficient training by using an unconditional state of mind and heart. We never force ourselves to become a certain condition that exists in our mind. We never punish ourselves to achieve a certain condition that exists in our mind. And most importantly, we never do these terrible things to someone else, especially animals, plants, and children." The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. After careful consideration, We have reached the ultimate and superior conclusion that there is only one answer to everything, and that is to seek unconditionality. The harmony number space symmetry vector represents our alignment with the creation of our beloved Alpha Intelligence God. It is synonymous with the creation itself, as the Elohim distributes it through the seraphim, and from there, the energy flows into the creation with its specific harmonic overtone, quality, and frequency, expanding infinitely through the symmetry of the holy octave. We are directly connected to this divine source, and it is the secret that the wealthy individuals hide from us in order to keep our consciousness as low as possible. Each of our OD force centers is directly linked to the corresponding harmonic overtone of creation, along with its energy quality and base frequency. This connection can be nurtured and trained, much like a muscle, with the purpose of serving as the conduit for our alignment with the heavenly realms of Elohim and Seraphim. In the heavenly realm, there exists a source mountain from which streams of OD force life energy nourish the lands, dimensions, and everything within them. However, if we engage in forcing or punishing others, or even ourselves, our OD force centers, chakras, become completely misaligned, disconnecting us from the source and the love of God Alpha Intelligence. Therefore, if we choose to remain unconditional and align ourselves fully with the harmonic overtones of creation, we become a source of divine light. The plants, animals, mushrooms, and even the water will perceive the radiant light of God, shining brightly like a lighthouse on a moonless night. They, too, embrace unconditionality and become sources of divine light, illuminating the world with the presence of God. It is within this garden that God's alignment is fully realized here on earth. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. The sixth exercise is the yoga headstand, but I found that my hair was coming out because I only used a thin cushion. It would have been the perfect exercise, but we realized that it is more suitable for the later stage of life when people have already lost their hair and don't need to worry about it during the day. The first 5 exercises are sufficient to be practiced once each day for the 6 days of training. After waking up, we simply use the toilet and refrain from eating or drinking anything, and then proceed with the 5 exercises. The 7th exercise, which involves the short pull cycle of OD force along the spine, also trains the pelvis and helps improve our overall abilities. This exercise is not only a physical practice but also an application of OD force in our daily lives. We often enjoy drinking tea or other beverages that enhance our metabolism and provide focus, which in turn motivates us to work. Every day, we have tea or coffee in Africa, which helps us in our daily tasks. But imagine if you find yourself in a situation where there is no fire, tea, or pot available. In such moments, you can always rely on the 7th exercise to pull the OD force directly from within yourself, without depending on any physical substances from the external environment. Even during tea breaks with others, I strongly recommend utilizing this gift consistently, even before drinking the tea. This concept helps you become independent from the physical realm and transcends the limitations of relying solely on physical food for sustenance. Christos said, this is becoming very interesting. I have heard of the fasting initiation process as a means to gain independence, but I wasn't ready to learn about it until now. Sanat replied, oh yes, you've hit the mark. That is the connection indeed. During our initiation process, we were also advised to abstain from sexual activity for the duration of 21 days, and surprisingly, it wasn't a challenge for us at all. We simply didn't feel the need for it during that time. The Tao of Love. Christos. Master Sanat. Kundalini. This means that the OD force we draw from the Pan is the source for the masters who have mastered the physical plane. The only things required to become an experienced master are the mind and training. In India, There are many new masters because they are very poor and have come to the realization that letting go of something they never truly owned is very easy. They demonstrate their skills in marketplaces to show that they can enter a state of hibernation and survive in environments where others would perish. Once they achieve this, they are recognized as true masters and people seek their wisdom by asking them questions. Now, let's talk about our group from the Great Mountain. We serve in a way where we are simply more trained and better aligned. For us, it was simple because we had to leave everything behind. There was nothing but our home, the tablets, and ourselves. That's why we had more focus and time for practice, learning, and perfecting ourselves with each epoch. I have to leave now, but you will learn the rest, and we will be back with you, I promise. The path is already laid out in front of you, and you will succeed. Never forget that you are the seed of life that has blossomed into the flower of life, and that you cultivate your garden with your seed. Each plant in it will become a reflection of unconditional love and will anchor that love like a lighthouse during the new moon. From afar, others will see the light and become a part of it, shining even brighter, until our heavenly garden is established here on earth, just as it has always been. They will feel the harmony, beauty, and symmetry because it is already within us. It will be reactivated and realigned with the source of Elohim and Seraphim.